Welcome to the No Sports Report, a production of iHeartRadio and Treefort Media. My name is Jensen Karp, and I'm a sports fan who is sitting here watching the world change. And the sports universe is no different. You've got the NFL appearing to embrace kneeling. Colin Kaepernick is being encouraged to return. UNLV is removing their Confederate-themed mascot. Entire college football teams are registering to vote in public. And today's episode touches on one of the more shocking developments, the evolution of NASCAR. But we're all looking at you, Washington Redskins. It's time. Even Aunt Jemima is seeing the door. Do the right thing and, I don't know, become the Washington Trout or the Evergreens or even the Kenny G's. He's from there. The logo could be a sax. Anyway, your move. Until then, I'm talking to athletes and sports industry professionals about what they're doing during this crazy time, hoping to figure out if they miss competing as much as I miss watching it. This is the No Sports Report with Some Sports Now. I have a confession to make. I've never watched an entire NASCAR race. I've seen highlights, mostly crashes, and I've checked in for a few minutes and said out loud, okay, that's a full circle. Then I change a channel. Honestly, it's never spoken to me. And when it has spoken in the past, it's usually for something that makes me very embarrassed for being a white person. To me, it was the sports equivalent to that one Kid Rock song where he samples Sweet Home Alabama. So over this past month, learning about Bubba Wallace, the banning of the Confederate flag, the sports embracing of Black Lives Matter, and today's guest, Breanna Daniels, has me excited to not only become a fan, but watch an entire race. As a black woman on a NASCAR pit crew, everything Breanna Daniels does smashes through a glass ceiling and sets a record, including participating in the Daytona 500. A former college basketball player, she's proof that you never really know what's next in life, as long as you're good at what you do. And Breanna is very good at what she does, now working for numerous competitive drivers at a time. We talk about the revolutionary Drive for Diversity program making changes at NASCAR, how she felt seeing those Confederate flags, and that idiot who decided to take his car and go home. I also catch up with friend and co-host of the Greatest podcast, Megan Gailey, about the health of returning players and her hard-to-hide enthusiasm for Peyton Manning. Thanks for listening to another episode of the No Sports Report with Some Sports Now.
Call from
Breanna Daniels.
To accept, press 1.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I wanted to start off by asking you where you've been quarantined and for how long.
I have been quarantined in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And with NASCAR, it's back and running. I feel like you jumped back into the real world. I need to ask you immediately, what is it like?
Hey, from going from being around no one to being around, a lot more people, just basically everybody in NASCAR is kind of a little scary at first, but things are feeling pretty normal again, except the fact that we have to wear masks the entire time that we're at the track. And we have to get our temperatures checked now.
Yeah, explain to me some of the differences that you've seen so far out on the racetrack.
When we get to the track, we have to do check-ins now. So each team has like a check-in time. That's where we have to wear our masks, get our temperatures checked. There's 5 different people outside the car. They're coming in the cars to check our temperatures. And then when we get in the track, from the time that we get out of our vehicles, we have to wear a mask the entire time up until race time. And the fact that there's no fans out there kind of makes things look a little bit empty. But at the same time, there's a lot of us on pit road and with the drivers and people on the team. So it's not all too bad, but there's definitely a lot of time and, a lot of room to walk around and stuff now without having the fans there. So.
Yeah, and I guess, too, you went from what we've all been in, sort of this at home all the time. You went to straight nonstop working. I think you're working on 3 cars right now?
At the moment, just 2.
And what are those cars?
I was on the 52 Xfinity car with Jamie Means Motorsports and then the 7 truck with the All Out Motorsports.
When these changes are made, like wearing a mask and such and some social distancing, does that mess with pit communication? Does that mess with your actual job?
Not really. Because under our helmets and stuff, like what we wear during the race, we have to wear these head socks that are fireproof. Mm-hmm. So those head socks go over our head and then we have to pull that up over our nose. So, whenever we talk or whatever, we're near our teammates, we just pull our mask down a little bit to say something, outside of all the other noise that's going on with the radios, I'm talking in the headsets, and it really hasn't gotten in the way.
What is with the fans not being there? I mean, I don't know a ton about NASCAR, but I would assume you guys feed off of the sort of the electric energy. Is that something that I'm guessing right? Like, does it feel like a completely different sport or like a practice if no one's there?
No, not really. Once we're on pit road and just seeing like all the cars pull in with all the different crews, it still seems like there's kind of a lot of people there. I really don't pay attention to the fans that much anyway, like during the race at least.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a lot of action going on pit road. So, I'm just doing my job. Like, it's nice to have the fans there, but that doesn't really, like, get in the way of anything.
Sure. And speaking about your job, let's get into how you got to this place you're in now. When did you get into NASCAR? I know it's kind of an awesome story.
Yeah. So I actually started NASCAR in September of 2016. But at the time, it was around, like, April when I was doing my senior year of college at Norfolk State University. This was the end of my basketball season.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't doing much besides doing an internship on campus where I was basically like a video girl. So when I wasn't playing in my games, I would record the men's basketball team, the softball team, baseball team, bowling, and I would clip and edit video footage, making like highlight tapes and all that for the teams.
Wow.
At the time I found out about the NASCAR pit crew coming to our school, it was a Monday, and a woman by the name of Tiffany Sykes, who announced at our basketball games, she's the one who came up to me when I was sitting down in between classes eating at Chick-fil-A, and she taps me on my shoulder. She's like, "Hey, Breanna." She's like, "I see you enjoying that chicken sandwich." I was like, "That I am." I was like, "What's up?" And she was like, "No, and I just wanted to tell you the NASCAR pit crew is going to be at our school on Wednesday. I think you should try out." And I looked at her like, "Girl, what?
Right.
The NASCAR? Like, who said I was into NASCAR?"
Right.
I was like, "I don't even watch NASCAR." So then I was like, "You said the NASCAR pit crew is coming to our school. Like, can I see a video or something?" So she takes out her phone and goes to YouTube and shows me a video of a pit stop. And I was like, "Dang, that was fast." Not knowing what position I would be or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So she takes her phone away and she's like, "Yep, so if you end up going to the trial, let me know." And she was like, "Okay, bye." And she walks off. And I'm looking confused, like, okay. So mind you, that's Monday. So Tuesday night, I had to make the decision of whether or not I was going to go to that tryout on Wednesday,
Right.
or record a professional baseball game with my internship. So I was like, do I really feel like standing up 6 hours to record this game? And I was like, if I end up going to this NASCAR tryout, will I be able to give it my all? Because at the time, I was actually training to play basketball overseas. So my body was like really, really sore.
Sure.
So I woke up Wednesday morning and it's like God told me, like, "Breanna, you have to go to this tryout." And I was like, "What?" Like, okay. Like, I don't question God. So, he told me to walk in there that day. And that's when I met Coach Phil Horton, who's a part of the NASCAR Driver Diversity Program under Matt Siegel. He was like, "Hey, my one and only girl." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "You're the only girl I have in here trying out today." And I was like, "Great."
Right.
That was nothing new to me because growing up, I played on different sports teams where I was like the only girl on the team with a bunch of guys. So I was like, okay, cool, piece of cake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I ended up doing a really, really good job. Like, Coach Horton put us through an obstacle course pretty much that was like really, really intense. He wanted to see where we were like mentally and physically. And I ended up doing a really, really good job. And he was like, "You'll definitely be hearing back from us."
Mm-hmm.
So like 3 weeks later, I ended up getting a text. I'm getting invited to the National Driver Diversity Pit Crew Combine. And there was more of us there. I would say like between like 24 and 26 of us.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Phil Horton and the whole diversity program, they went to different schools recruiting different athletes. In this tryout, there was more girls there. There was like 6 girls and the rest were guys. I kind of like stood out in that tryout too because like, as soon as we got there, that's when I actually seen a car. I was like, okay, cool, here's a car now.
Right.
So then when we got into place, Coach Horton like split everybody up within our positions. So he seen me. He was like, "Hey, you're a tire changer. You get over here with the tire changers, tire carriers over here, jackman over here, gasman over here." So then that was my first time holding an impact wrench because I had to sit in front of like a practice hub, like a wheel,
Right.
and do my taps. Like I'm taking the lug nuts off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just getting that rhythm.
Did you have any experience at that point? Did you know anything about NASCAR, or are you just going into every one of these exercises completely blind?
I'm going into this exercise completely blind.
Wow.
I knew nothing about NASCAR, didn't even watch it. So at this point, I'm just trying something new, and I'm just allowing my athleticism to take over, since I've been a lifelong athlete. That definitely played a huge part. So like I said, I sat in front of this practice hub doing taps. My arms and my hands are getting sore because I never had to do anything like this before.
Mm-hmm.
My body's just not used to it. So then I remember the very, very next day, we got to do the same thing and work on our positions like for a little bit more. And we were about to have like a lunch break. And Coach Horton was like, he's like, y'all come take a break, come get some food. And then I was like one of the only ones left on the car, you know, still like practicing. And he was like, Breanna, aren't you going to come eat? And I was like, I'm going to do this first. You know, the food always going to be there. But, you know, this is something that I'm completely new at. So I want to make sure I'm good by the time we put everything together. I knew at that point that he really liked me because he's seen that I was for real and that I wanted to do it.
Yeah. And you had the dedication that you brought from your basketball experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think after that tryout, we were supposed to find out like a month or two after that if we had gotten selected to come back and train to be a professional pit crew, remember? But I found out the next day after that when I was heading home back to Charlotte. He was like, you know, Coach couldn't wait to tell you, but he's interested in you coming back, and he just wants to know if you want to come back. And I was like, yay.
I was going to ask, had you fixed a flat tire in your own normal life before?
No, it's crazy because I changed a NASCAR, like a race tire before I changed a regular car tire.
Amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah, that is, right?
More with NASCAR's Breanna Daniels after this. And now the rest of my chat with NASCAR's Breanna Daniels. The Drive for Diversity program, which is something that's obviously front and center right now for NASCAR because Bubba Wallace was also part of the same program, correct?
Yep.
I guess a bigger question is, and you've been there for a couple of years now, but I think a lot of us sports fans who've been watching from afar, is there anyone we're more proud of being woke than NASCAR? This is such an incredible sort of surprise for a lot of us. Did you sort of see that coming?
No, I did not. But, you know, it really warmed my heart because the stuff that's happening right now in NASCAR, like NASCAR needs this, you know, and we've needed change for a really, really long time. Change for the better, starting with Bubba, you know, having that rap on his car, the Black Lives Matter. That was a very powerful thing to do. It was definitely good for the culture, you know, and with the whole thing with the Confederate flag banning, I feel like that was causing like a lot of division. And, you know, NASCAR, that's not what we're about.
Right.
We're all about togetherness and dealing with Confederate flags. That's something that NASCAR had to deal with for years, you know, and they just decided to take another route.
Had you run into any, like, you as a Black woman, when you had seen those Confederate flags at events, how did that make you feel?
I felt uncomfortable, to be honest. I mean, that's not how I was brought up, and, you know, I could really do without, you know? Mm. So, like I said, I'm behind NASCAR for deciding to make those necessary changes. Because, like I said, I feel like it's good moving forward. And what we need right now is NASCAR is really doing a good job right now with, like I said, changing the sport for the better. Because I even have a lot of people hitting me up, you know, messaging me on social media saying that, you know, hey, I'm going to come out to a race now. You know, people who said that they would never come just because with all the other stuff they have going on with NASCAR. So yeah. I like to see that more people are trying to get involved in NASCAR now that these changes are being made, you know, and that we're bringing awareness to the Black Lives Matter movement because Black lives do matter, you know, and with everything going on, social injustice, as an African-American woman, I'm just getting so tired of seeing my own killed, you know?
Absolutely.
For a long time, it's so hard being Black. And it shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all human. You know, we all want to be treated equally and fair. And things just haven't been right for years. Mm-hmm. And we're going to keep fighting until we're heard. We're going to keep protesting, standing in the front lines, you know, until we're heard, until those changes are made. Because, like I said, I'm just getting tired of seeing us drop like flies. It's not right. And no human should be treated that way because of the color of your skin. The color of our skin should not matter.
Absolutely.
So,
and I know that NASCAR had Kadron Bryant sing the national anthem at the event, which he became viral from a Black Lives Matter themed YouTube video, kind of like a cover or an original song, I think. Mm-hmm. And I guess too, like, you went on Twitter this past week and you described your story saying that, you know, you're the first Black woman to have ever pit at a Daytona 500 or a NASCAR race. And you were selling T-shirts. And I wanted to know, my wife is one of the people who bought one of those T-shirts. And I wanted to know, what kind of response did you get from sort of your story going somewhat viral online?
I've got so much feedback, you know, people messaging me and sending me tweets like, girl, oh my God, I'm so sorry that I'm just now finding out about you. You're awesome. And then, of course, they're talking about how NASCAR is doing so good right now. Like, this is great. And, oh, my God, I'm so glad that I discovered you. And just everybody saying, like, I want to support you so much. Like, could you send me the link to your T-shirts? And,
Right.
you know, just people they're happy for the movement, you know. And they're happy to see people in the sport who are making a difference. You know, the people being vocal about things. So it warmed my heart to see all that love I received from the fans and the stuff that I continue to get. So yeah, if you do want to purchase the shirt, just contact me directly on my social media, Breanna Daniels, to get those shirts. Yes.
Yeah, we will be promoting it. I also wanted to shout out guys like Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kyle Busch, who have made these supportive videos for Black Lives Matter. I am new to the idea that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a major ally. I had no clue how much in the past he stood up for things like this.
Yes, me neither. Just seeing people a part of the movement and, you know, speaking up on it, it really warms my heart. And that's what should happen, you know, and I'm glad they actually stepped up and, you know, had a voice about it.
Absolutely. You grew up in Virginia, correct?
Yes, Virginia.
So, did you run into these kind of issues growing up? I mean, obviously, as a white male, I hear the stories. I've been a witness for many years to the experience of what they face. But the South, for me, as someone who grew up in California his whole life, you know, it's almost a different country.
Mm-hmm.
What did you face when it came to racial bias or police brutality? Or did you have that kind of experience growing up?
Growing up, I've had people say a couple of things. I'm trying to remember what age I was. It was like a few years ago. I had a guy tell me, "Oh, you're pretty for a black girl." Like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty for a black, like just little things like that. As far as my twin brother, Breon, he has a woman down the sidewalk and her putting her bag on the other side.
Right.
As if like he's a threat to her. Like just, and of course this is a white woman. It's like, why do those things have to happen? It's just little stuff like that just shouldn't even be happening. That of course we notice, and it's always been happening for years. So a lot of stuff's been happening for years. It's just now that there's technology and, you know, high quality cameras and we have the power to like release these videos and stuff that people are going through. Like the man who just passed away at the Wendy's 2 nights ago, the cop shot him in the back, like while he was running away. Like it's just stuff like that should not happen. And those cops should be held accountable for their actions. Like there's no other way.
Absolutely. And there's, I don't want to give him too much press, so I'm not even going to say his name, but he's a NASCAR driver who has as many NASCAR wins as I do. He says he's quitting the sport over this decision with the Confederate flag. I mean, do you have any ability to see, because I cannot, and I try always to put myself in other people's shoes to just at least acknowledge where maybe this comes from. I mean, I can't fathom feeling that kind of passion for something that means has a definition to other people that's so much different. And so I guess it's just discriminative. Like, do you know what they even have a connection with?
At the end of the day, that just looked really, really bad. Like him doing all that.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things that happen in the world that we don't like. You know, there's going to be things that happen that we all might not agree with, but you don't have to act like that. And that just shows a lot about his character. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not a fan of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
To act as such, you know, so he kind of had his little hissy fit or whatever, and he's too grown to be doing all that.
That's right. I do want to point out too, like, you know, with your tweet going viral and obviously how much publicity Bubba Wallace is correctly getting, are there other people in NASCAR that we should know about? Is there other, I mean, this Drive for Diversity program is obviously awesome. I mean, should we know about other minorities sort of coming up in NASCAR?
Yeah, so my roommate now, she's from France. Her name is Yolanda. Mm-hmm. She's also a black woman. She's the second black female tire changer we have in the diversity program, wow, which is really, really cool.
I mean, everything you two are doing, I mean, especially you, because I think you probably got your start in NASCAR a little earlier than her, but like everything you do, every small event, every accomplishment that you're kind of achieving, it's the first of its kind.
Hey, I'm just trying to keep breaking these barriers, you know?
It has to be insane.
Do what I was called to do. Keep making a difference.
Absolutely. So 2 questions as we wrap up. The first is, what's left for you? You're hitting each one of these milestones and, you know, press is picking it up and figuring out you're the first to do it as a black female. What's your next goal? What's the thing you're looking to do next?
Well, so like outside of NASCAR, I'm an aspiring actress, TV personality. You know, I've always saw myself doing that. I've always had a goal to do that. And whatever else is meant for me, you know? Mm-hmm. So I just know I'm a hard worker. So whatever I put my mind to is going to happen regardless. So that's kind of my take on things.
And lastly, where can NASCAR go from here? We're all applauding from the sidelines. We know that there's a lot of movement and growth happening there. It's caught my attention. I'm excited to follow, and I've become a big Bubba fan immediately. But what do you want to see in the future? Is there anything left?
So the NASCAR Drive for Diversity program has been doing a really, really good job with having a lot of diversity within the pit crew. I would like to see more diversity with these teams, you know? Like the guys behind the scenes. I want those to be a mixed group of people too, and not just one face. Crew chiefs. I would like to see some African American crew chiefs. You know, some more minority crew chiefs.
Is that something you can shift to from Tire? Is that something you can move into over time?
I hadn't really thought about it, but I mean, hey, if it's meant for me to do that, I'll do that.
Well, I'm happy to put it in your head. Breanna, thank you so much for talking to me, and you're truly an inspiration, and I'm so excited to watch your growth. And when you become the crew chief, I'll be there with the t-shirt on.
Hey, sounds good.
After this, in our latest Fandemic installment, I'll check in with Megan Gailey, comedian and co-host of iHeartRadio sports podcast, The Greatest. Right now, Feeding America is working tirelessly to ensure our most vulnerable populations, like students who are out of school, the elderly, individuals whose jobs are impacted, and low-income families, continue to have access to food and other needed resources during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Feeding America Food Bank Network is committed to serving communities and people facing hunger in America, and their greatest need is donations and support of local food banks. This podcast is committed to donating a portion of the proceeds from the show to Feeding America, and we hope that you can join us in this effort too. Find out how you can help at feedingamerica.org/COVID-19. Now, here's my Fandemic chat with comedian Megan Gailey. Hello, Megan. It's Jensen.
Hi.
I'm proud to talk to you because you know what the problems are with producing a podcast during the quarantine. You know that we have to have these headphones. You know that you have to be in a good space. It's just a different world.
Yeah. No, and the thing is, I don't have any of those skills. So I'm like so happy to have CJ, because if it was just me, the podcast would be me making Instagram videos.
I have been, I'm now sort of a genius when it comes to Zoom. I'm a genius when it comes to this Focusrite Scarlet machine. I know all these weird things I didn't know before 3 months ago.
Yeah, and that you didn't have any desire to know.
No, I don't need, I actually used to do a podcast where we would do it over Skype, and we hated it so much, we just stopped doing the podcast.
And now that's like best case scenario.
Yeah, it's the only thing we can do. I am talking to you today for many reasons, but one is today the news broke that Ezekiel Elliott and a bunch of Dallas Cowboys, based on like a preseason, have all tested positive for coronavirus. There's 5 guys that we hear, and I couldn't think of someone in my mind who thinks about sports and, like me, is an empath as much as you. This seems like too much.
Well, the thing, too, is Dak got in trouble at the very beginning, like back in March, for having a party. Mm-hmm. And then, Zeke was in that. It's just the Cowboys really are a true disaster, it feels like.
They lived up to their 90s friends. I mean, I feel like it's almost a time travel move.
Well, I mean, like between Zeke being in that video, Jerry Jones last year saying, if you kneel, you'll be fired. Mm-hmm. And now COVID, it's like they've actually found a way to be relevant in every single negative story that is happening in America.
Right. They have to hit all of them.
And that's a true gift.
Yeah.
That's a true gift.
Collect them all. They have every Pokemon of disaster.
So did they test positive from being out? Were they at some Cowboys sponsored workout?
I think it's those like a voluntary OATs or whatever they call them. They're like set up before camp. Yeah, I think it's that, and you just have to assume people were like high-fiving or something. Like it could be as minimal as that.
Wow. I do love that Ezekiel Elliott knows about HIPAA, though, because that is like, he does have a point there. He's like, wait, how does everyone have my medical records now?
It is very dark. We did the same thing when the Lakers, so that was actually a weird thing too, is like back in the day around the work stoppage around March 15th or something, we had heard that 3 or 4 Lakers tested positive for coronavirus. And here we are months later without knowing who those people are.
Which to me is like, it must have been LeBron.
Right. The only person who could hide it?
Well, it's just like, even if it was like Kuz, I feel like we would have known. But if it's like Anthony Davis or LeBron, they're not going to tell us.
Right.
So that makes me think it was Anthony Davis and LeBron, which also makes me be like, that's why LeBron is extra so gung-ho to go to Orlando, because he knows he has the antibodies already.
Right. He can't get it again.
These are my conspiracies that are going through my brain.
I love that. But I guess I'm looking into your heart as a sports fan. You also have a great sports podcast with your husband called The Greatest. And do you think we should be pushing these dudes to go play sports?
Gosh, when the basketball plan was unveiled, I think we were all, I was happy and excited. There's parts of it that really don't make sense to me. I think you can just start at the playoffs. I don't understand why you need like 8 extra teams to be there. You're just adding amounts of people. Mm-hmm. But then when you hear Black players in the NBA say like, we don't want to go play because we don't want any spotlight taken away from the work we're doing in Black Lives Matter. We also don't want to put ourselves at risk, and we're not going to be able to see our family. Like, it's very, I know LeBron wants to play, and I know, I think Patrick Beverley even came out today and was like, LeBron is the leader. If he wants to do it, then we have to do it. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like the plan that is in place for the NBA is not one that has enough support for it to be the plan that they're going to actually do. Like, I think we were blinded by excitement. And I do think given the spotlight that they'll have, they'd be able to make raise incredible awareness and be a part of the movement from Orlando still. But mm-hmm. I don't know. To me, Adam Silver is the president of the United States. I look to him for leadership.
I've said it many times. We look to him. He is our North Star.
Yeah. And so it's really, you want to be like, he has his ducks in a row because that is our moral compass, but it doesn't feel like he does right now. And I think that's also just the nature of how quickly things change in terms of Black Lives Matter movement and COVID. Like, every day there is something new, and California is spiking right now. Florida is spiking. There are places where the disease is just getting worse. And so it's like, why are we rushing to put a large amount of Black men in a bubble to entertain us right now? Like, it is hard to rationalize that is a good idea.
Yeah, in Houston, I know the Rockets had to cancel practices and close down the facility just because they're nervous about the growth of coronavirus again. And I guess, too, I've looked into as much as you can of this mysterious Disney World, plan. And one of the ideas is that the people who work at Disneyland are able to go home every night and then come back. That doesn't sound like a bubble at all.
No. And I think after 3 weeks, the teams that are going to be in the semis and conference finals and then finals, their families are allowed to come to some extent. So then you're talking about people flying or driving from places that there has not been a bubble. And I also think we kind of focus on the NBA because it feels like the NFL is a lost cause.
Yeah.
The NFL is just going to do literally whatever the fuck they want to do, despite anything happening in the world.
But you got to say, listen, we wrote on the ESPYs together. We were able to make tons of jokes about sports. I, for once, feel like maybe things are waking up, to use a term around woke, but to see Goodell talking, to see Drew Brees backing up from his stupidity, to see, I just spoke with Brehanna Daniels from NASCAR, who's the first African-American.
Oh, yes, I love her.
She's the best. We just spoke with her. You're going to be connected to her episode, so you'll come on after her.
Yes.
And, I never thought that I would be saying congratulations to NASCAR for being so in front of these race relation issues. And I guess I'm just really surprised and happy about how athletes and truthfully the white industry of sports has been handling everything.
Yeah. Bubba Wallace is the only Black NASCAR driver. And when you see what felt like very, very much unanimous support in what he was calling for, which is to remove Confederate flags and everything from NASCAR, they all came, like Earnhardt Jr., who's not even racing, came out. It almost felt like there was more support in NASCAR than there has been by white NFL players.
Yeah. It's 100% true.
And I was just going to say NASCAR is also at an advantage in the sense of people are in cars to compete. You know, like that is COVID safe. That feels like you can have these pit crews be bubbled and potted to get like, who knew NASCAR? Well, they're really killing it.
Truthfully, had no idea I was going to become such a NASCAR fan of their politics.
Have you ever been to a NASCAR race?
No, but I'm thinking about it now.
I mean, I'm from Indianapolis, and so racing is huge there. I went to a Brickyard 400 with my dad in high school. This is now, almost 15 years ago. I heard some of the most vile, hateful, disgusting things I've ever heard in my life shouted at a NASCAR race.
Wow, really?
And I think what they're doing, and I think what the Red Sox are doing with their acknowledgement is saying, yes, we do have a problem, and it is our fans, and we are not going to gaslight and pretend that it's not real anymore. And that's a huge step.
Absolutely. I've been pleasantly surprised. Red Sox and all the way down. I mean, obviously watching Goodell in that video, I felt like they were going to turn the camera. They're going to be a bunch of guns like it was a Taliban video. I had never, ever expected him to say those things.
Yeah.
And I have to assume we are coming up on a Kaepernick announcement in some way, shape, or form.
I do too, because when you see that Pete Carroll, who is, as a coach, is really respected. When he says, oh, I should have signed him, I don't know if he necessarily believes that. I don't actually think he's probably being truthful. But what I do think the NFL is doing is, hey, if we set enough of a stage that he is good and he is ready to play and that there's very legitimate, respected coaches that believe that, he will get on a team. And so I think in some ways they're kind of doing a campaign for him to get on a team. And I think it would be obviously extremely beautiful and really moving to see, but if I were him, I don't know if I would want to be on a team.
Yeah, I've talked to my wife about it a couple times, and I've said, as a big Kaepernick fan, I don't think being away from the game for that long and coming back, unless we're really filming a Rudy movie here, which would be incredible to watch. But I'm not sure that's going to be the redemption that I feel like he deserves. I feel like he deserves to be running a team, or, I don't know what it is yet, but I'm excited to see what kind of his revenge, for lack of a better word, will be with the NFL.
Yeah, it's just 4 years is so long. And like, if he doesn't come out and be good, at least good up to, great, then I think people are going to be hating on it. And it's like, that's really not resourceful at this point.
It does give ammo to the wrong people, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I hate them. And I just love them not having ammo. Ooh, when that old, fat, bald loser was like, I'm quitting NASCAR. And NASCAR was like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah,
that was
great.
Beautiful. Like, more of that.
You have been running a sports podcast, like I said, with your husband. I was lucky enough to have a title called No Sports, even if there are some sports now. What has it been like trying to find content during this work stoppage?
I think we like the process of leaving our home to go do it somewhere else. Like, we are trapped together in this home, and now we are coworkers too. And so that's kind of tough to wrap your mind around. And as I admitted, I have no skills. So I am the least trained coworker. I am like the loser of the office now in my own home. But I carry that with pride. I don't mind. And our show, luckily, we're talking about things that have happened in the past. We're like ranking greatest comebacks, greatest uniforms, greatest WNBA players. And so it's been kind of fun to look back and enjoy a lot of things that I'd forgotten about. We just did greatest documentaries.
Sure.
And our guest, Jamel Johnson, had documentaries. I was like, yeah, I still need to see that. And so it is kind of nice. I've been able to like make a list of stuff that I know will make me feel good to watch. But sports is really kind of the only thing that makes me happy a lot of the time.
Sure.
And without it, that's been especially hard. And I do have to say the podcast has helped me a lot. It's like made me feel happy to talk to friends about sports, even if it was something that happened 10 years ago.
Were the documentary sports only, top sports documentaries?
Yeah.
Okay. What are shocking names? I mean, obviously we know Hoop Dreams, they're the obvious.
Right. So my number one was this documentary called Schooled, which is basically about how fucked up the NCAA is.
Sure.
And I think we all at some point maybe came from a place in our brain where it was like, nothing's more valuable than a free education. And it's like, that is a lie that we have been sold so they could trick people into free services and create a $22 billion industry on the backs of mostly Black athletes. And it's a really, really great documentary. We also talked about Undefeated, which I think is sort of like the seed that made Last Chance U and Cheer and all of those types of stories even possible now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think God, I wish maybe you know more about this, but I know that during this whole thing where any news that's not related to the end of the world sort of gets buried, I do believe there are a couple states that are close to allowing college football players to take endorsements.
Yes. So California was actually the very first state. It passed, I believe back in January. It was right before we went into quarantine, and they will be able to make money off of, I think, their likeness and be able to reap benefits when they are used in video games, anything like that. And California doing that is a huge deal because there's a lot of giant schools out here that kids want to be recruited by to come live in beautiful weather and play at USC, UCLA. Like, that sounds like a good deal. And B, it's a large enough state that the NCAA can't just really say, we're not going to deal with you anymore.
Right.
So I think the hope is California can pull the rest of the country and some of them kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Alabama wants to give up their hold on free college football labor, but they very well may have to. Ooh, I hate these motherfuckers.
It kills me. I mean, as an O'Bannon fan, I mean, it's funny because Los Angeles being up front, it's like Charles O'Bannon had sued for the NCAA video game because basically they had his jersey number. It looked just like him. They didn't have to pay him because they said it wasn't his likeness, which was crazy. And I also think the argument of they're getting a free education, which is just a painful argument, but that might hold weight when they weren't making billions of dollars from the sport.
Yeah.
And the coaches weren't making tens of millions of dollars. Like, you might be able to get me if you're making a small amount of money off of the sport. But at this point, these teams are keeping the university afloat.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could make that argument for lacrosse, perhaps. But most of the highest paid people in every single state are college football coaches.
Yeah.
And that is obscene and crazy when you think that their quote unquote employees make $0.
Yeah.
And you also see the G League and kind of the youngest ball. I always get the ball boys confused in my mind, their name.
LaMelo.
Oh God. So, I mean, there are the G League is paying real money, and that is going to be an alternative. And if you see college basketball start to fall, you hope you start to see college football go the same way. But it's insane with everything we know about how much money they make and the CTE science we have now to ask young men to put their physical wellness on the line and pay them no money. That just can't keep happening.
I'm telling you, that's an argument we could make for some of the non-LeBrons and the non-Giannis's from COVID as well. I mean, these guys, some of the guys who aren't bajillionaires and going out there as sort of contract guys, they're not getting paid enough to face this disease either.
And you see baseball having such a difficult time coming to an agreement. And I am really hopeful that we'll see basketball. And I know that that's a selfish desire, but it is a real reality that this plan that is in place that felt like it was going to happen may fall apart.
Lastly, I want to tell people one of my favorite moments in SB's history. You were part of the staff when Peyton Manning was the host. You were hired because you're goddamn hilarious and know so much about sports. But how much of a secret did you keep your Peyton Manning fandom? Because I was there when you finally told him, after weeks of working with him, what he means to you. Tell people the process of what you had to go through to hide that.
Well, I'm from Indianapolis, and I'm the biggest Colts fan. I mean, truly, my Instagram got hacked this weekend, and then I got it back, and everyone was like, "How do we know it's you?" And I posted a picture of the Colts, and everyone was like, "It's you." Like, I love them. I've told Dwight Freeney I would give him organs. Like, but this was a really important, cool job, and I didn't want Peyton to think that I was crazy or weird or look at me different because I was from a place that has a statue of him that I would kiss even in a pandemic. And so I just kept I didn't even plan on keeping it a secret that long, but I just was like, I think I'm just not going to tell him. And then I'll just be a regular old gal. And then once the show was really over, I did tell him, and he was so sweet. I just remember he goes, "Why didn't you tell me?" And it was just so cute.
We all had dinner with him. We had dinner with him alone. There were times you could have easily brought up how important he was to you.
I know. Whenever he would come in the room and then leave, all of you would look at me and be like, "You love him." Like, I would get flushed. It was so, I felt like maybe J-Lo and Made in Manhattan. I was really keeping up a ruse for just myself.
Well, you did incredible, and I'm so happy to talk to you. And people should check out The Greatest. It is an iHeartRadio companion to our show as well out there in the sports world. And I'm happy to have you on and to be able to talk to you. I know we lost a mutual friend and an incredible producer from the ESPYs, Maura Mant, during this entire COVID run. And I know I texted you about it, but what an awful loss.
I mean, in sports, as a woman, there's so few people you feel like you have to look up to. And Maura was not even like a woman in sports. She just was the ESPYs. And the fact that she was a badass woman only made her legend, I think, grow even more.
Yeah, I really hit me a lot harder than I ever would have expected. I'm going to miss her tremendously, and working with other producers, it's like I'm going to be able to point out all the things that made her the best producer to work for. I mean, you were there the year when we said we want the Affleck duck, and a day later a duck walked into our writers' room.
The Affleck duck came in. Yeah. I know. Whenever I see a half-drink green juice, I'm going to think of Maura forever.
Very sweet. Well, thank you for talking to me, and send my love to CJ, please.
Thanks, Jensen. Missing you.
Missing you. Take care. The No Sports Report is produced and distributed by Treefort Media. The show is executive produced by Kelly Garner, Lisa Ammerman, Matthew Kugler, and me, Jensen Karp. Tom Monahan is our senior audio engineer and sound supervisor, with production and editing by Jasper Leak. Additional production help from Tim Schauer, June Rosen, and Haley Mandelberg. Our theme music is composed by Spilkus. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe, rate us, and review us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And please visit feedingamerica.org. If you're able to make a donation, any amount makes a difference, and you can learn more about other ways you can help on their website. For more information on the No Sports Report, links to the socials, and for show transcripts for our hearing impaired listeners, go to treefort.fm. Be safe and be well. The No Sports Report is a production of iHeartRadio and Treefort Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.